One Question is designed to give subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown and welcome to One Question, where we highlight executive leaders in college athletics. Our guest today is Tommy Gray. Tommy is the Executive Associate Athletics Director for External Relations at Stanford University. Greetings, Tommy. Thanks for joining us.
Hey there, Ty. Thanks for having me.
Now, Tommy, your background is interesting. You've been in college athletics for roughly 5 years. Before that, you spent some time in consulting with Deloitte, and you also spent some time with the New England Patriots in business strategy. And you were hired on there at Stanford as the business strategy manager. Over time, you became business strategy and ticket operations. And of course, now you're over external operations as a whole. In your role now, the external relations role, you take a business analytics and strategy approach to marketing, fan experience, and everything related to what you do in external relations. Tell me about your method of implementing that analytics mindset within your specific department and the things that you are over there at Stanford.
Absolutely. And I think maybe the best way for me to start would actually just be to talk a little bit about the history and the background of the business strategy team at Stanford. It really got going back in 2013, 2014 timeframe with Kevin Blue, who's now the athletics director at UC Davis. When he took over the external relations unit here at Stanford, he had this vision of building out a central team of analysts who could solve problems across the department, really. And he started out with a gentleman named Dave Sertich, who was a Princeton grad and had a finance background, and that was kind of the first step towards creating this business strategy group. I was the second step. They hired me in 2014 to come on. And really early on, we were focused mostly on ticket sales, specifically ticket pricing, and then also our sales and marketing strategy and operations. And the reason we did that, we kind of had identified that as the lowest hanging fruit and probably the biggest area of opportunity for us as a department. And specific to ticket pricing, we analyzed all the primary and secondary market data that we had, and we identified that we had a ticket broker problem, and not necessarily in terms of the quantity of tickets that brokers own. They actually controlled thousands of our tickets. But we saw what they were doing with them, and they were turning a substantial profit on the secondary market. And we thought, well, you know what, if somebody's going to profit off of our tickets, we feel like it should be Stanford so that we can put that money right back into the student athlete experience. So we, over a few years, we optimized those prices and have seen really since in the last decade, our football ticketing revenue has nearly doubled. And we were also focused in terms of sales and marketing on the process and the strategy there as well. So the business strategy group implemented a CRM system for our ticket sales team, and we were managing a lot of their campaigns and prospecting for them, and also working with our marketing team to select a marketing automation vendor, helping them with email targeting, new customer acquisition, that type of thing as well. So in terms of the strategy and operations for those two groups, that was really our focus early on. And then if you fast forward to today, that's really become the ticketing side of things is still a really important project, and it's something that we do really on an ongoing basis. So we now have a 4-person business strategy team, and they've really started to spread their wings and take on projects across external relations and really across the department as well. And you know, some of the examples of the things that we've been able to do with our business strategy team, they've turned their attention to parking and tailgating as another revenue stream. We've done a lot more customer surveying and have been more responsive about feedback that we get on our game day experience, or also on people's communication preferences so that we can tailor communications with our customers. We've started to work a lot with our communications and our digital and video groups to identify insights that we can get from the data about, you know, the different platforms that we operate on, the audiences that we're engaging with, you know, posting frequency, all different types of strategic insights with that group as well, and then continue to work a lot with our marketing team to optimize our email and web and social media marketing campaigns, and kind of identify best practices there as well. And I think, you know, one of the things that we've seen as it's expanded across the department is that this mindset, and I'm talking right now mostly about what the business strategy team has done, but it's really more about implementing a mindset across all of our staff in the external relations group, and really that mindset has been pretty contagious. So while the business strategy team is certainly a resource that can support the various external relations groups and do some of the heavy lifting in terms of organizing data and setting up real-time data visualizations, the practitioners in the actual groups, the ER groups, are the ones who are mostly interpreting the data and using it to inform their decision making and their day-to-day functions. And I think that's how it works best, is having the central resource to help people get up and running, but then the experts who are actually doing the work should be the ones who are deriving the insights and making decisions with it. So that's kind of the approach we've taken. And, I think, again, in terms of the business strategy team itself, the method, back to your original question, has been to identify our biggest pain points, our biggest areas of opportunity, and specifically ones where maybe the individual or the team overseeing that area doesn't have the bandwidth to tackle, a big longer-term project that may or may not have a payoff down the road, and we've thrown the business strategy team at those types of projects. And then again, more culturally across all of our staff within external relations, it's about adapting this mindset of, how do we do our job better? And if that's using data analytics to do your job better, great. If it's using technology to do your job better, great. If it involves using your own creativity and intuition, that's great as well. But when I think of kind of the business analysis mindset, it's not just about data and analytics. It's really about constantly questioning, constantly being intellectually curious about what you're doing and how you can do it better in support of our student athletes.
Right, Tommy, and that's interesting. I wonder, in terms of some of the practitioners you mentioned, the staff within external relations, is there a normalized way of processing data? Is there a normalized thought process when you think about business strategy in terms of how you hire or how you train and how people think on an ongoing basis when they receive data or when they think about decisions you make as a department?
Yeah, well, and I think it starts really mechanically with how we're delivering data to everybody, and we've gone down the path working with the Pac-12 conference actually of using a data visualization tool called Domo, and we're trying to get really all of our different data sources. Each of our native tools that we're working with, be it our ticketing vendor or the different social media platforms, they all have native analytics tools. But when you have, 8, 9, 10 different sources that you're looking at for data, it's hard to bring yourself to spend a lot of time with it. So if we can centralize all of that into a single repository and put it in nice visualizations, which for us is Domo, that really helps somebody just be able to log into their screen in Domo and say, these are the 10 things I need to think about and to care about that can help me make decisions. So how we deliver the data, I think, has been a big part of it. And then otherwise, I think it's just been talking about it on a regular basis, and it starts with the managers of each of the groups within external relations, and all of them have really bought into this concept of supplementing, again, intellect, intuition, experience with data where possible to make more informed decisions or to validate decisions that we've already made.
All right, and you see other athletic departments slowly but surely implementing this and seeing the importance of business strategy and the analytics mindset. I wonder about Stanford as a whole. You were hired there as part of this business strategy kind of group within athletics. How has that affected and how has it been integrated into the athletics department as a whole?
Yeah, and this has been a really exciting evolution for us over, I'd really say, the last 12 months. And I mentioned that we now have a 4-person business strategy team, and they're able to spend more time within external relations. We've also started to take on some projects across the department. I can think of a few examples. We've worked with our facilities and operations group on our pricing structure for renting our facilities. We've also worked with them on ingress and egress planning for football game days, which is something that we struggle with here, being in a suburban environment that's not really that close to a highway. So we work a lot with our facility and operations team and also the local agencies on ingress and egress planning, and there's data and also just kind of processes you can put into place to help with that. I mentioned earlier customer surveying. We've spent a lot of time, our business strategy team, on game day enhancements, be it concessions pricing and products and working with our vendor there, tailgating reservations and service, and different things that our customers have raised their hand and said, hey, it'd be nice if this was better for us. Another example actually is we started even working with some of our teams. Most of them use some form of video analysis software, and our business strategy group got involved in managing the vendor of that technology, and we were able to identify ways where we could consolidate our contract and have more teams able to use the same software without paying any more money, which was a huge win for some of the teams that were struggling to find it in their budget to pay for this video analysis software that they were looking for. But I think a couple that maybe stand out to me of projects that have cut across the department, we recently rolled out a strategic plan at Stanford to our staff, and I won't go into too much detail on it, but the model we settled on was called OGSM, Objectives, Goals, Strategies, and Measures, was the model of the strategic plan that we used. And when you think about goals and measures, those are numbers that help track what you're doing. And our business strategy team is working as we speak right now on putting those goals and the measures that we've identified through the strategic planning process into Domo as well, and that'll be rolled out across the department to all of our staff so that all of us can be operating from the same page and knowing where we're succeeding in relation to our strategic plan and where we're coming up short. So that's been a big one recently. And another one that's also related to strategic plan is one of the initiatives that we identified was the need to use technology better across our department. And even just basic technology like emailing and calendaring and document storage and collaboration. I can name 3 or 4 different document storage services that we use across the department right now, and we're in the process, our business strategy team is, of kind of inventorying everything that we currently use. And I think ultimately our goal here is to settle on a single software solution for each of the big buckets of technology needs so that we're all using the same technology across the department, which I think will increase efficiency for all of our staffs in their day-to-day work. But I think, in the future, our leadership team here in the athletics department, I think, has started to recognize the value that having this central unit that, really doesn't have a day job, so to speak, right? Their job is to identify areas of opportunity and challenges that they can help solve. And really, that's something that can help across the department, not just within external relations, and our leadership team has really embraced that.
Right. I wonder, do parts of the athletics department bring stuff to them and say, hey, can we improve on this? Or do they just have carte blanche and look at everything and say, here's some areas we think you can identify here in this part of the department? Or how does that process work?
Yeah, and that's, one of the big things that we hire for into the business strategy group is, I'd say, honestly, humility. And it's just, going knocking on people's doors, understanding what are your pain points on a day-to-day basis, or what are some areas of opportunity that you see that you just haven't had time to pursue? How can I help you? In any way. So I think there's a little bit of grassroots business strategy going out, knocking on doors, and just understanding how the business works and figuring out ways that they might be able to help. And certainly, I think keeping your ear to the ground constantly and seeing what other people across the industry are doing and borrowing ideas from them is important as well. But it does, I think, the leadership team being aware of what the business strategy team is doing, allows our leadership team really represents all of the different units across the department. And so I think we've started now in the last 12 months to have projects that come from the leadership team saying, it'd be really helpful in my area if business strategy could plug into this particular project that we're working on right now.
Thinking about that business strategy mindset, the data analytics mindset, you think about you came in as business strategy manager, then ticket operations, now external relations. And of course, this business strategy informal group, I guess you would say, there at Stanford is helping out the whole department. What are some challenges with that when you talk about leading people, or you talking about, coaches and staffs and those kind of things? Everything isn't necessarily a tangible, measurable thing. Tell me about some challenges you've seen since you've been there in terms of this mindset across the department.
No, that's absolutely right. Some of the things you just observed, Ty. I think some of the big, challenges that I've seen are, data analysis is a supplement to experience and intuition. It's not a replacement for it. And I think it's really important, coming into it. I am oriented to the world and I want to use numbers to inform my decisions when possible. But like you said, that's not always possible, and it's also not always the right thing to do. If we have somebody, we have an incredible staff here who has a lot of experience in tackling their jobs, and to come in and say, hey, these numbers are telling us to do X, Y, Z, and they say, well, I actually think ABC is better. There needs to be a conversation about that. The numbers don't necessarily point you in the right direction every time. And I think it's really important to recognize that. Again, it's really a supplement to experience and intuition. It's not a replacement. I think also one of the things that we try to be cognizant of is data analysis without practical applications can be a waste of time. There may be some exceptions, like when you're validating something that you're already doing, but in general, it's important to ask the question, what will we or what could we do with this information or these insights, and what impact would that have before we embark on a significant analysis? Otherwise, you're risking wasting a lot of people's time. And then, like you said earlier, again, numbers don't always tell the whole story. I mean, there's a lot of examples, I think, of traditional marketing channels. It's really hard to measure and attribute revenue and measure ROI there. So a lot of that is more based on your gut. It's not. We mostly do digital advertising because we think it's the most cost-effective, but that doesn't mean that we can completely ignore traditional marketing, even though we can't necessarily measure precisely the impact it has. I think the other thing we talk a lot about in our content creating units is We certainly want our content to go far and wide and be engaged with by as many people as possible, but we can't forget that there are really important audiences that we need to be hitting. And, if you have a really important donor see this video that you produced and that's the only person who sees the video, that could actually be incredibly impactful, even though the audience was just one person. So there, especially in the content areas, I think being mindful of things like, how is this hitting our donors? How is this resonating with recruits? How is this keeping, our student athletes who are from all over the world in touch with their families and their families able to follow along, even if the numbers are maybe saying we should be doing something else? There's some really important audiences that we can't forget about. And then I think also on a similar vein, on the content side, there are some stories that we think we just need to tell here. Whether or not they're going to go far and wide or get in front of a lot of people is somewhat irrelevant, because it is such an important story to be told, and so we need to tell it even if the numbers say, you shouldn't write this feature story, you should write this feature story. Well, we may need to actually write the one that the numbers would go against, just because it's such an important story that we think the world needs to hear.
As we wind down here, relative to the business strategy group and also there in external operations, obviously you want to focus on people with strategy and analytic background. Is there any value to having someone on the team who has a wealth of experience in successfully dealing with people or managing relationships?
Yeah, I think, in reality, I think the size of our business strategy team, I think we're fortunate to have 4 people, but when your team is 4 people, I think everybody has to be able to do a little bit of both, because we need to be able to have all those 4 individuals independently be running with projects, which means they're going to be interfacing with a lot of different constituents. So when we're hiring for a business strategy team, to date, we really haven't, looked for people who are going to sit in a dark room and crunch numbers all day exclusively. We're looking for people who certainly have that analytical ability, that are intellectually curious, but also can interact with people in a way that allows them to understand. Again, I mentioned earlier the different pain points that people have, the different areas of opportunity. That's all about talking to people and talking to the functional experts out in the field to get a sense for how that business strategy team could plug in and help.
All right. I imagine you probably take that approach, similar approach to your external relations staff also.
Absolutely.
Okay. And my final question here, Tommy, really my final question here. So you recently had a kid. Tell me about how the business strategy mindset has affected you at home when you're talking about a kid who does not want to do anything that has to do with strategy or any of that.
Oh man, Ty, put me on the spot here. I've tried to not be too dogmatic about some of the books that I read as a new parent here about sleep schedules and things like that. We're trying to let her kind of just tell us what to do. It's funny, I actually read a book about the French approach to parenting, and they're all about going with the rhythm and letting the child tell you what to do. So I'm trying to let some of that wash over me, in addition to my desire to be very regimented.
All right. Well, that's funny. Well, you know what? You'll have fun doing it, Tommy. Congratulations on the new baby. And of course, I appreciate you joining us here on One Question.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me.
That was Tommy Gray. He's the Executive Associate Athletics Director for External Relations at Stanford University. And of course, this is Ty Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of One Question is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.